Sandbaggers is probably the best spy show ever made. That's my opinion, but don't take my word for it. It's also the view of the National Interest, a bi-monthly international relations magazine primarily enjoyed by tiresome people, and the New York Times, which is also primarily enjoyed by tiresome people. But don't hold any of that against that. The Sandbaggers ran from 1978 until 1980, and managed 20 episodes in its 3 series as. It's based around a fictional subgroup of the British Secret Service, the Special Service, also known as the Sandbaggers, a small team of elite agents. They have dangerous missions, they sometimes die, and brush up against rival secret agents. All typical stuff, but what makes it special is how it's done. And that's all down to one person, Ian Macintosh, the show's creator and head writer. Macintosh was a lieutenant commander in the Royal Navy who had a whole side career as a novelist. In the early 70s, while still serving, he created and wrote for Warship, a realistic drama set in a British Navy warship, which, believe it or not, gives me some serious 1990s Star Trek vibes. It's as far from humanist as you can get, but like Trek, it deals with competent people serving together and working on varied problems every week, and not always military related. Anyway, partway through Warship's run, Macintosh retired from the Navy, and later on he created the Sandbaggers, and with it he set out to make the most realistic spy drama of all time, and he succeeded. Unlike most of the spy things, the Sandbaggers actually used real spy jargon, and not archaic stuff in use when they made the show. And according to one of the actors, the reason the second series had 6 episodes instead of 7 was that one of the scripts literally had to be junked because it included up-to-date intelligence information that was not meant to be released. The show was cut short after 3 series because Macintosh disappeared under mysterious circumstances in the Bering Sea. He was out flying and was never seen again. This kind of thing, the jargon and the junked episode claim, lead to the common theory that Macintosh was a spy or ex-spy himself. Fun fact, if you remember your James Bond, his day job was being a commander in the Royal Navy.
Request permission to come aboard, sir.
Permission granted.
In fact, in the DVD release, there's a chat between 2 of the lead actors reminiscing about the show, and they spend several minutes talking about Macintosh, whether he was a spy, the fishiness of his disappearance, and the possibility that he defected to either China or the USSR.
Yeah. So, the whole thing is highly mysterious. So where could he be? He might have defected to Russia, perhaps. Maybe he was a double agent, went to Russia, but why is there no sign of him after Glasnost?
No, it's most mysterious, yeah. But
it's interesting to note that when Macintosh vanished, the Sandbaggers was filming an episode that's a sympathetic look at a British defector.
But it's an assassination now, isn't it?
yes,
Designed to look like an accident?
yes.
Good.
And Warship did an episode about a naval officer manipulated into becoming a double agent. Honestly, I'm not going to believe it without hard evidence, but I wouldn't be surprised if Macintosh was somehow involved in stuff. Anyway, the main character is human Kubrick stare Neil Burnside, played by Roy Marsden. You might know him from Smith & Jones and New Who. Burnside's the leader of the Sandbaggers, a former field agent. He's the midpoint between the field agents and the high-ups like C, the real-life version of James Bond's M. He plans the missions and assigns the agents, butts heads with the government types who want the impossible, and complains bitterly about budget cuts. He's also magnificently Machiavellian and borderline sociopathic, when he sometimes crosses the border. He's used to sending his friends to their deaths, and he knows that. Most interestingly, he's not even patriotic. He seems to much prefer the United States. He's just good at his job and insists on doing it well. Oh, and side note, but according to what I've read, the Sandbaggers' organizational structure much more closely resembles the CIA than MI5 or 6. Put that with Burnside's CIA hard-on, and the chances are Macintosh was just a fanboy. Anyway, I'm going to take you through 3 episodes of the show to give you a taste of what's there. A taste of its excellently written, deeply unglamorous, mostly gadget-free, underfunded and deeply cynical take on international espionage, where operations aren't won and lost thanks to individual heroism, but by smoking men in stark rooms, talking and researching stuff. The first episode, First Principles, is an excellent primer for the show, showing the pitfalls of the usual sort of tactics we see in spy fiction, and how successful missions are actually done. A Norwegian spy plane has gone down behind the Iron Curtain, and their government asks for the Sandbaggers' assistance in rescuing the survivors as quickly and quietly as possible. Burnside refuses because it's basically suicidal. The Norwegian government then goes over his head and offers to purchase a British-made missile system in exchange for the mission. So Burnside is ordered by his superiors to do the mission, which is almost sure to fail and lose him agents. And on a good day, he only has 3 of them. Even C, the head of British Secret Service, admits it's suicidal, but can't deny the request. What follows is a lot of careful planning as Burnside sets his limited pieces and funds into the best positions for success, as the Norwegians get more and more antsy about their crew being captured in the meantime. Eventually, the Norwegians go to the American government and offer to buy the Americans' rival missile system instead, and the US government orders the CIA to get the crew out first.
So when are you all going in?
They're in. An hour ago.
But where the Sandbaggers used spy planes to get up-to-date information on the crash site and the surrounding area, the CIA used satellites and older maps and then dove in head first.
They reckon to have spotted the aircraft from comparative satellite tracings. They went straight in there, got briefed on the run.
They arrive before the Sandbaggers and save the crashed crew, but are captured on the way out. They miss some details about the exact location of Soviet forces. While the Sandbaggers, who have arrived just in time to see the capture, use their superior knowledge and planning to escape without being captured. And the British government uses the embarrassment to force the Norwegian government to buy the British missile system anyway. It's a particularly low-key episode and not spectacular, but it's really a palate cleanser for the audience. The audience primed for the showy, glamorous kind of spy fiction that Bond exemplifies. It's a tutorial in universe for the Norwegians, and for the audience about how real high-level spies actually operate. And it completely works. The Sandbaggers survive and escape through tedious, careful planning, and the better-funded CIA, acting more like the leads in most spy fiction, act without as much thought and get captured.
If you want James Bond, go to your library. But if you want a successful operation, sit at your desk and think. And then think again.
Episode 3 is your journey really necessary? It's where I worked out that the show is something really fucked up and special, hitting a level of cynical darkness that has rarely been equaled, except in other episodes of the Sandbaggers. It opens up with 2 of the Sandbaggers on a mission, one in the field on the other side of the Iron Curtain, and the other in the distance watching out for him. The one in the field is in bad shape, he's wounded and being hunted by a squad of Soviet soldiers. Now, if this was James Bond, the spotter would do a rescue. There's only a handful of Soviet soldiers after all. But this is the Sandbaggers. Burnside had him killed, to avoid a show trial of an agent, an international incident, and other usual spy stuff. And the agent who took the shot was the dead guy's best friend. This episode is all about snowballing consequences of Burnside's decisions, and it is magnificently fucked up. I'll sum it up. The mission wasn't sanctioned, it was illegal and being done as a favour for the CIA, who'll give far more in return. And Burnside believes it was necessary because government cuts have cut his department to the bone.
You've assassinated a Soviet general on foreign soil at the request of a third country and had your own agent killed thereafter.
The end will more than justify the means.
The agent who killed his best friend has severe PTSD and wants to quit, but can't admit that, so he comes up with an excuse. He's getting married, and he doesn't want to put his fiancée through all this.
I'm sorry, sir. I just don't think it would be fair on Sally if I stayed on in the special section.
There are only 3 Sandbagger agents, and it takes months to find a suitable replacement, so Burnside can't lose him too. So he decides to destroy his agent's relationship with his fiancée, first by ordering the other surviving agent to dig into her past to find anything they can use to destroy the relationship. When that doesn't work, he breaks into her flat to find anything incriminating, and finally goes code red. He personally threatens to have her drugged and sexually assaulted on film to create evidence of an affair if she doesn't break it off with her fiancé.
I can have you taken off the streets, drugged, stripped, and into bed with a dozen different men.
On top of that, he threatens to create evidence that she's a prostitute, a thief, or sold government secrets.
Then I could have you done for soliciting, shoplifting, breaking the Official Secrets Act.
You'd do it too, wouldn't you?
Yes, with regrets.
In shock, she gets drunk that night and gets a call from her fiancé. He's decided not to leave the job after all and they can marry later on. Not thinking straight, she thinks he's chosen the job over her. Chosen Burnside over her.
Oh, they need you, do they? Must be nice to be needed. And they're such sensitive people. You mustn't let them down.
And she kills herself. And her fiancé, shaken by their last conversation, accidentally walks into traffic.
He was knocked down by a taxi crossing the street.
Too many other things on his mind.
All the consequences of Burnside's bastardry. There's other stuff going on too, but the important stuff is Burnside destroying 3 lives for the sake of a mission. Possibly 4 lives because she might have been pregnant.
You aren't pregnant, are you?
It would be pretty pointless, wouldn't it?
This episode really lays bare that the show is about bad people doing a bad job. That in this world, the ends justify the means, but sometimes they don't get the ends they intend at. This episode has massive consequences for the rest of the series, because it eventually leads to episode 7, The Special Relationship, where the show reaches the height of its fucked up cynicism. In the episode since, the dead agents have been replaced with the first woman sandbagger, who Burnside has started a relationship with. The Sandbaggers are assigned to pick up some photographs from an informant in East Germany, and she's the only agent fluent in German, so she has to be sent. It's her first high-risk assignment, so naturally it all goes to hell when it turns out the informant was compromised. She's captured and tortured, and Burnside's desperate to make a prisoner swap and fast. Not only because of their relationship, but because she was recently briefed in the Hungarian underground, and when she breaks, she'll take most of it with her. The prisoner swap is agreed, but the agent that the Soviets demand is being held in French custody. So the French demand free access to all the CIA intelligence shared with the UK for the next year. The UK and the USA intelligence services have an unusually close relationship.
Want one?
Burnside realizes that he can't keep this arrangement with the French secret from the CIA, and if it's found out, it'll destroy that relationship. So Burnside contacts the CIA himself with a plan. The prisoner exchange goes ahead in Berlin. And she's killed by a CIA sniper. Burnside had an impossible dilemma: let the Hungarian underground burn or set his part of the Cold War back decades by saving her life. So he made it a trilemma. With her dead, the Hungarian underground is safe, and with the prisoner exchange not completed, his agreement with the French is null and void. And all it cost was her life and his everything else. Burnside needed to maintain the relationship with the CIA and protect the Hungarian underground more than he needed her alive. This is one of the most shockingly cynical episodes of TV I've ever seen, and that is saying something. TV in the 70s tended to be episodic. There wasn't that much in the way of story arcs, but this exact arc aired today would set the net alight. From the shock to the perfect mirroring between the end of this episode and the start of episode 3. And best of all, Burnside had to put his money where his mouth is, sacrificing the pawn, even when it's the woman he loves. This really is a spectacular show, though not for everyone. It's talky, smart, dark as hell, aggressively against action scenes, but if that's your sort of thing, there's 17 more.
So his parents, to this day, I know Laurie still believes he's alive to this day.
Does he?
But where would he be? Why would he be in China, for instance?
Why would he
be in Russia now? Because now that we have Glasnost, the whole thing's open. They've opened all the they've opened a lot of KGB files. Where would he be is the question.
We hope it's a huge success, and we hope everybody watching.
By the way, how
enjoys it.
many fans have we got?
3 at the last count. Maybe.
3.
Yeah.
One of them's my mother. So.
But we're hoping for a few more.
Yeah, we're looking for a few more. So.